Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. I'm CJ, and today's a code Q&A. Should I increase the brightness of this light? Maybe I should. Let's see. That was the wrong thing. Ooh. I think that's better. I can't tell. But welcome in, everyone. Glad to have you. Some of you didn't tune in on Saturday, so you haven't seen the new setup. This is it. I guess I can turn the blur off now because I'm actually live. Yeah, so I added this. There's a camera behind me. Now you can see behind me. And then this is what my my studio looks like. Here, I'll hide the chat for a second. It's my little arts and crafts area. My workstation over there. There's some beans on the table. These are all my keyboards. So yeah, this is what's really happening. Are the cameras out of sync? Oh, they are. Look at that. Yeah. So this one is just a regular plain old little USB camera, so it's faster. And then that one is a 4K USB camera, so it takes more. So it's a little bit delayed. Yeah, everything is IKEA. So even this desk that I'm standing at is an IKEA desk. And then all of those are like I forget the name of them. But yeah. Oh yeah, well, I'm not going to be on this scene when I type in passwords. I will not. All right. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. Welcome in, everyone. Glad to have you here. Happy Tuesday. The on-air sign doesn't work. That'll be a future project. We will make it work. We'll hook it up to a Raspberry Pi Zero. Put it inside of there because it's a little like shadow box. And then when I'm actually live, it will light up automatically. That's the plan, anyways. Got to get used to all my scenes. I got a lot of scenes. Okay. This is a code Q&A stream. I'm going to be answering your questions in the chat. If you type !ask followed by your question, that question will appear on this website, vox.coding.garden. You can go here, and the questions that are here are like a month to 2 months old because that was the last time we did a Q&A stream. So if you asked a question a month or 2 months ago and you don't want to ask that question anymore, you can do !archive followed by the question number, and the question will disappear. Oh, I was going to answer that one, the Shibas. I was about to answer it. I think you were asking about pet peeves. I'm going to answer it anyways, even though you archived it. The Shibas asked, do I have any particular pet peeves? I couldn't, like, when I read that question, I couldn't think of any. The example they gave was, like, the misspelling of the word your. When I see that, I just laugh. Like, it doesn't bother me that much. My pet peeves, like, more recently are people not driving good. So, I don't know if it's happening everywhere else in the U.S., but here in Denver over the past, I mean, honestly, I think it started before the pandemic, and then it got gradually worse after the pandemic. Like, people driving and traffic is bad. For one, people don't come to a full stop at stop signs. That really, really bothers me. And then also, people that are turning right on red don't come to a complete stop. Now, I know, like, it's a little more lax to not come to a complete stop on right on red. I sort of get that, but not really, because it's a red light. You're supposed to stop at a red light. People being really aggressive and basically not acting like there are other humans behind the wheel. When someone, for whatever reason, it seems like people getting in a car, they lose all empathy for everyone else for whatever reason. Yeah, I mean, I've driven in New York City. I've driven in Texas. I will honestly say, Houston, Texas traffic is some of the worst traffic I've ever been in. But I'm more so talking, not even on like the interstate, just like in a residential neighborhood. The things that people do, like going over the speed limit in a residential neighborhood, I don't really like. I don't know. Yeah, and I think that's the main idea, whoa, dude, is like, so everyone that's like driving like a maniac, they're basically acting like everyone else is in their way, right? They have somewhere to be. Anyone else that's between where they are and where they're trying to be is in their way. When in reality, everyone's trying to get somewhere, and you really do have to be empathetic to that, right? Like, I mean, and like, it's the silliest. I laugh at drivers that, I mean, I shouldn't laugh because it's reckless, but I laugh at drivers that zip through traffic and then stop right beside me at the exact same red light, right? Like, it's hurry up and wait. They're like speeding just so that they can stop at the same time as me. I don't know. Those are my pet peeves. That's at least these days. And like, I honestly dread even like driving to the grocery store because there's like 4 or 5 stop signs between me, 4 or 5 four-way stop signs. So there's a stop sign at every piece of the intersection. And, especially during like rush hour traffic, like I don't know if people are actually going to stop. I always come to a complete stop at a 4-way stop. And so when I come to a complete stop, the other driver, we're technically like, I got there first, but because I came to a complete stop, they go before me. There's just so many people that don't come to a complete stop at 4-way stops. And then I've seen people blowing through them, but like, I'm less worried about people blowing through them. I just want people to obey the rules of the road, because it just makes it really unpredictable, right? Like, if everyone in the US has decided, okay, we're not going to stop at stop signs anymore. We're going to treat stop signs like yield signs. If everyone did that, then maybe that's okay. But the fact that I'm trying to go by the law, I'm trying to go by what I learned in driving school, and everyone else is not doing that, it makes it really stressful to be on the road. Oh, I'm really sad to hear that, the She-Boss. And I think that's the other thing is, like, people don't understand why we need to stop at 4-way stop signs. It's typically for pedestrians. Because you need to come to a complete stop and make sure that no one's crossing the road in on the turn that you're trying to make, or crossing the road on the road that you're trying to go across. Yeah, I think I'm getting riled up because I starting to talk about it. And then the other thing is, so it still has to do with driving, but in grocery store, or like grocery store parking lots, or big box store parking lots. The drivers there are extremely aggressive as well, and that's when they should be driving like no more than 10 miles an hour. They should be yielding to every single pedestrian, because it's like there's a lot of people walking in a parking lot. But yeah, I got really worked up the other day because like I was going to the grocery store, right? So on the way to the grocery store, 2 people didn't come to a complete stop at a 4-way stop, and they just blew past me. It's like, all right, fine. I get to the grocery store. I'm about to walk like across the clearly painted crosswalk to go into the grocery store. I look both ways. There are a car stopped here and a car stopped there. I start to walk. The car that stopped just drives right in front of me. Now, I saw them. I was able to stop so they didn't run me over, but that person, now, and I don't think there was any ill intent. I don't think they were trying to run me over, but I think that person isn't thinking about stop signs and driving the way they should be. Like, they stopped for traffic. They stopped for cars, but they didn't think to look for pedestrians, when that's the whole purpose of that place. I don't know. I totally agree, Terawatt, and I'm gonna give a hot take. So Terawatt says U.S. driving license requirements are a joke. My hot take is that every single driver in the United States should have to take a driver exam like every 3 years. Every 3 years, you should prove that you still know the rules of the road. Now, if the U.S. were to enact something like that, it actually would be kind of bad for the elderly, because the elderly, like, that's the other crazy thing is older people that can't see very well or don't have quick reaction times are behind the wheel. And it's like, all right, if they weren't able to drive, then they wouldn't be able to get anywhere, and that's really unfortunate. But that means that maybe we should have some systems in place where if elderly people want to get around, they can do it for free. Like they don't have to go on public transport. I mean, I guess it would be public transportation. I don't know. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like from a convenience perspective, it's really inconvenient because now, yeah, you'd have to stay studied up. You have to go take a test every 3 years or so. But the whole reason I mention that is because I see all these people on the road breaking the rules of the road. And you have to think, all right, so if you're in like a really like negative or pessimistic mindset, you're like, all right, all of these people are purposefully breaking the law. Like they know that they're doing wrong and they're purposefully doing it. I don't think everyone has ill intent like that. I just think there's a lot of people that didn't actually learn the rules of a four-way stop sign or didn't learn the rules of coming to a complete stop if you're trying to turn right on red. So, I don't know. You can tell that really gets me worked up. And I think that's the point TED Talks, right? It's like people break the rules, know the rules, but I think there is there's a subset of people that just don't know the rules and then are potentially making it unsafe for everyone else. I don't know. Yeah, well, and I guess that's the other tricky part, right? And so Ched mentions the rules apply if a cop is nearby. The tricky part about that is after the pandemic, there were a lot less like a police presence here in Denver, or really more so like a lot less traffic enforcement. There's so many cars driving around with no license plate or expired license plate or like a 3-month expired temporary license plate. But there's no like traffic law enforcement. So that also makes it very tricky. And I think that's the other, like if we're thinking about the psychology of it, people potentially only obey the rules if they know someone is watching, if they know like a police is watching and that they could potentially get in trouble for it. But like I mentioned before, that goes against even understanding like why you need to stop at a four-way stop sign. You don't stop at a four-way stop sign because you don't want to get a ticket. You stop so that you don't run into other cars and you don't run over people. But a lot of people don't think about that. They just think about, there's no cop around. I'm not going to get a ticket. I'm not going to stop at this stop sign. I don't know. We could talk for hours about the psychology of it because, like, I had like a bit of a crisis of conscience just because I want to believe that not everyone in the world has like such ill intent, or like not everyone is trying to be a bad driver. But I think it does come down to, yeah, like there's no police watching, so they don't obey the laws. I don't know. Yeah. Well, and then that's the other thing. So in the U.S., a lot of people don't know how to use a roundabout, and that I think ultimately it just comes down to like education, and then potentially like traffic enforcement that's separate from the actual police force. So you have the police force that is enforcing laws and responding to like break-ins and other various crimes, but then you have a completely separate department dedicated to traffic. And I don't think cameras could do the job, Persuco, because there was actually a thread on r/Denver recently talking about how all of these speeding cameras are showing up throughout Denver. And so basically they're inside of a van. Like the van will park. The van has a camera pointed out the back and a speedometer or I don't know what they're called, but they if it detects someone speeding, it takes a picture, sends it to them in the mail. And so they've shown up a lot of places, but I don't think it's going to stop anyone. Because like some people are just, oh yeah, I'll just pay the ticket. But they don't understand. It's not about paying the ticket. It's about not speeding so you don't kill people. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, technically, I don't even need to leave my house because I could literally get anything delivered to my house in probably under 2 hours. Anything. Name a thing, and I can have it at my house in probably less than 2 hours. Whether it's food, something from a big box store or like a convenience store, like I can get it delivered. So I don't technically have to leave the house. I'm not, and I can't, I would not want a dead body at my door in 2 hours or less. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's not that you're allowed to break the rules. It's that like that's, and that gets to the psychology of it, right? How do we, how can we make sure that your average citizen who's trying to be a good citizen obeys the laws, right? Yeah, so obeys the laws. And you have a big spectrum, right? The complete end of the spectrum is like a police state where literally any rule or law that you break, you will be put in prison or you'll be punished in some serious way. And then the far end of it is just lawlessness, right? They're like, there is no enforcement at all. And the psychology of it is, okay, as the average citizen, what will incentivize me to actually follow the rules? Is it that I don't want to get in trouble? Or is it that I would argue that it should be, I want to coexist with all of the people around me, right? Like, I want to be a good citizen. And being a good citizen means making compromises, having empathy for the people around you, and not breaking the rules and laws because you know they will affect other people. But I don't know. I think we're going to stop talking about this because it's not code. It's not code. Can I get a house delivered? Look, like, anything that you could go to a store and buy, I could have delivered to my house. Yeah. You have 12 points in the UK, then you lose your license, so a speeding ticket could be 3 points. I could see that, but, I mean, my mind immediately goes to, there are so many people driving without licenses to begin with. There's no traffic enforcement, at least around here. So, like, people are driving without license plates. Like, typically, I believe if you get pulled over without having a license plate, your car will get impounded, and I do believe your license will be suspended. But those people don't care. Like, they're all over the place. I don't know. Yeah, and I mean, that's basically my point. Like, these rules exist for a reason, for people's safety. Yeah. No, I bet. I grew up in a lot of places, but I lived in Germany in third, fourth, and fifth grade, and I think it was either the third or fourth grade. I took a bicycle class. My father was in the military, so that's why I lived over there. But this class was off post, so it was just a bicycle training school. But you basically learn all the rules of the road that a driver would learn because you have to know them as a bicyclist on the road. And it was, I remember it because they had an entire course set up. Like, it had like mock four-way stops and like mock traffic lights and stuff like that. And I learned, I don't know if I had to get like a bicycle license or something like that, but I was a kid. I was like third or fourth grade and I had to learn all the rules of the road. I don't know. The car should monitor how you drive and adjust your insurance premiums. There are some insurance companies that do that. They have a little ODB2 dongle that you plug into the ODB port in your car, and it'll keep track of like how hard you brake or how you accelerate. And if you drive well enough, I think typically the incentive is that it'll lower your insurance premium. I don't think there's ever an incentive that if you're a bad driver, it will increase it. So there's no bad effect. There's only a good effect. Traffic violations are 5% of annual income? Wow. I don't know about it. So, I mean, in the US, to get a driver's license, you take the test when you're like 15 or 16 years old. And then that's it. If you pass, you have a driver's license for the rest of your life. And you also don't necessarily have to go to driving school. So in various states in the US, when you turn 15, you can get a learner's permit. And the learner's permit lets you drive in a car with someone that's 23 years of age or older and has a driver's license, something like that. It might vary by state. So basically, you can start driving when you're 15, and then when you're 16, you have to take the actual test to get your license. But like when I was 15, I took a driving course as well, and like that had no. I guess technically I think that course allowed me to get my learner's permit. I don't know. You got pulled over in Denver for having an out-of-state plate? That's weird. How long ago was that? At least in the US, it's actually a thing that like cars in other states that have Colorado plates in like the surrounding states will get pulled over because marijuana is legal in Colorado and it's not legal in all of the states surrounding Colorado. So typically, like if you have like a minor traffic infraction in a neighboring state, you might get pulled over just because they think you might have marijuana in your car because you have a Colorado license plate. Yeah. The car had no floor. Wait. You were driving in a car that had no floor? Yeah. Bicycle school in elementary. So maybe that's what I don't even remember like why I had to enroll in it or whatever, but yeah, I learned the rules of the road when I was just a kid in Germany. And thanks for the supports. I will, I need to go to all the supports. Okay. Raus aus dem Weg. What does that mean? I know very little German. Detect language to English. Get out of the way! That's funny. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Ein bisschen. My wife got pulled over for speeding, and the officer struggled with his computer for over 40 minutes, so he just gave her a verbal warning. He couldn't even get the ticket to print. I guess that's the other issue, is like if you're trying to enforce it and then you can't. Yeah. Cool, yeah, so in Poland they have a similar bicycle license, yeah. Well. Oh, that's an interesting point, Vulture Mike. So you have traffic infractions where the amount you have to pay is relative to your annual income. I don't know how well that would work. The thing is, like, a lot of people that have a large annual income don't have a lot of savings or don't have the money to pay a ticket like that because they're like living, even people making that much money are still living paycheck to paycheck or like living essentially above their means. I don't know. It varies, Daniel. I have ads enabled so that once they've run, people don't get pre-roll ads, but just let me, now that you're here, if you see another ad, let me know. I'll stop talking. Or at least stop saying anything important. Don't you have to retake the... Yeah, I mean, there's like... sometimes you have to take like a defensive driving course if you get certain traffic infractions. Yeah, that is a thing, but I argue that people should have to retake the exam even if they don't have any infractions, just to prove that they still know how to drive. Yeah. So, like I was mentioning, it varies by state. So in Illinois, you have to take a test a minimum once a decade and randomly in between for renewals. And every renewal after 60. That's awesome. I would love to have that here in Colorado. I don't think that's a thing here in Colorado. Yeah. In late 2019. Wow. Yeah, I would say these days you probably wouldn't, because, I mean, people aren't even getting in trouble for various traffic infractions. I don't know why they'd pull you over just for having an out-of-state license plate. Yeah. Yeah. There should be sounds. What's up, Austin? Welcome in. What's Germany's stance on wheelies? I assume people don't do wheelies like they do here in the United States. Maybe a little bit, but you don't have entire bike gangs doing wheelies in the streets there. I don't think, anyways. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think all of the changes from Fresh Spots I still need to push. The thing I don't understand is hard speed limits. Feels like lack of education and practice poured over on people who have low income and increase the stress levels. Yeah, it's tricky. Because if you want to talk about, like, all right, so I've been talking about all of these, like, minor traffic infractions, like stopping at a stop sign or turning right on a red light without coming to a complete stop, stuff like that. If you're talking about, like, going 55 miles per hour in a 50 mile per hour area, I think that's something like less of something to worry about, especially if it's an interstate where there are only cars, there are no pedestrians. A little bit over the speed limit is maybe fine, but the thing is, once you allow that, now people are like, oh, well, I guess I'll go 10 over the speed limit, or I guess I'll go 15 over the speed limit. So, like, where is the limit? I think for a lot of police, the limit is, like, anything over 10 you'll get a ticket for. But, I don't know. Yeah, I need to talk about code now. I mean, I guess we could switch to just chatting and, like, talk about various stuff. I've seen Borat, yeah. Well, is there something specific in there? Yeah. Yeah, maybe the support notifications are off. Yeah. Appreciate that, it's Shulman. I'll mention everyone in a second. Yeah. Hey, that's a pun. Germans really like them. I'm in Denver, Colorado. That's where I'm at right now. Interesting. That's an interesting concept as well. As like as a politician, you're like, if I get elected, I will forgive all tickets, so people just don't pay them at all. Huh. Turning right at a red light is mind-boggling to the rest of the world outside of the U.S. Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay if you come to a complete stop. Like, you need to come to a complete stop, check for pedestrians, check for oncoming traffic, and then go. Like, a car literally honked at me last week because I stopped at a red light. I was turning right, but they honked at me because I came to a stop first. Like, they were expecting me to just, like, you know, like, yield and go through, but, like, your wheels should come to a complete stop. Like, complete stop, the car will shake a little bit because of forward momentum or whatever, but I came to a complete stop and the car behind me honked at me, which is maddening. Yeah. Politics stream? I guess, is this politics? I guess we're talking about traffic rules and laws. What's your opinion? When the day comes when autonomous driving cars are the norm, if an autonomous driven car crashes into someone, who is at fault? Who's liable? Yeah, I mean, that gets into the whole philosophy of artificial intelligence and stuff like that. So I mean, and you can probably tell from my opinions on like traffic in general, I think everything should be automated. I don't think humans should be behind the wheel at all. I know a lot of people don't feel that way. I think especially people that like collect cars or like working on cars or like where like cars and driving are like a big part of their life. They don't like that opinion, but things will be infinitely safer when everything is automated. So I do hope for a day when that happens. I think we're a long way from it because of the things that I mentioned. There are so many people that have like collectors cars and that like there's just like car culture here in the US. So yeah, in terms of who's at fault, I think the owner of the vehicle. I think that's again, like I've never really talked about this out loud, so I haven't like formulated a lot of thoughts on it. But here's the thing: if you hold the car manufacturer liable, they will potentially go out of business. I mean, depending on, and I guess that's actually incentive to hold the car manufacturer reliable, because that means if you hold them reliable, then they will need to put more effort into writing better algorithms and making their car safer. Whereas if you put the car owner, if you put the liability on them, I mean, they potentially didn't have anything to do with it. I think it needs to be investigated just like normal car crashes are investigated these days, because the person that was in charge of the car could have disabled a safety feature or could have done something to make the car crash even though it was driving it itself. So I don't know. It's a tricky question to ask. Tricky question to answer. I believe there are entire like philosophy discussions on like who's at fault there. No, I haven't seen that. Platformatic. Yeah. There's no speed limits where we're going. Just make tickets automated and make people pay a small fee going even one over the limit. Yeah, I think it's tricky here as well because then people just won't pay tickets. Like, I don't know. Yeah, turning right on red is great if you come to a complete stop first. That's all I'm saying. Don't treat it like a yield sign. Come to a complete stop. Yeah. Yeah, well, in a country where you drive on the left, it would be left on red, not right on red. Yeah. Unprovoked honking is illegal in Europe? I didn't know that. So I've lived in New York City, and like and I have driven in New York City as well. I mean, obviously, but well, actually, when I lived there, I didn't have a car, but I lived in New Jersey and I drove to New York City. But yeah, that was the first time I ever experienced people just honking when cars are completely standing still. It's like there's literally nothing that I can do, and everyone is honking. It's a really weird thing. It doesn't happen all over the United States, but definitely in New York City. If I got honked at, I would sit at the red light, right turn, because no, and that's the thing. I could have. I didn't have to turn. I could have just waited for a green light, but the person behind me was being very aggressive. And then, like, so I did the right on red. They blew through the red. Like, they didn't come to a stop behind me. They just blew through it, and then you just sped past me. So I don't know. Texas is wild and notorious for bad drivers. Yeah. So I lived in Houston, Texas, and it was some of the worst. I mean, I only remember like driving on the interstate there, and that's always the word. Just because like one of the main things is people don't let you merge. So you're coming to a point where you need to exit. Cars are like really backed up, and no one will let you in. When I got to Denver, I was amazed. I was like, wow, people are so nice here. It's changed. Like basically, like the driving in Denver is getting closer and closer to how the driving is in Texas. At least the driving that I was familiar with there. Like people not letting you merge, being aggressive, all that stuff. Yeah. In here, you can do anything in the road if there's no traffic police. If there's no traffic police, there's no stopping. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm arguing about. Like, I don't think people should do that. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I have to actually answer code questions now. I'm going to scroll past a lot of these. Yeah, this is engineering ethics class. Yeah. Yeah, so and that's why like some countries don't understand the like why the US does that, but yeah, it's Shulman is saying in Brazil a red light is a red light. You stop at a red light. No turning on a red light. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Austin. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think everything goes out the window if like you don't want to be mugged at a red light. Like people will run a red light if they don't want to. Yeah. Okay, thank you all for not sending so many messages. Let's answer some code questions. Thank you, Timon. I don't know if anyone noticed, but so I started the stream, and for those of you that are just coming in, we have a new getting started screen, so you can see the studio. But when I started the stream, I was wearing a black shirt, and also my mustache had not been styled yet. And then I went off to change my shirt and style my mustache. So I appreciate that. That you think it looks good. You keep talking about the FPS, Terwat. Yeah, okay, so this one, I mean, the FPS is decent, right? This one is ahead of that one, but the FPS is the same. Okay, if I blur it, can you tell? I don't know. The wide shot looks like it's 24 frames per second. It's possible. It's possible that that's how that camera does it. All right, let's answer some questions. So if you have a code-related question, you can do !ask, followed by your question. It'll show up here. If there's anyone asking questions in chat that didn't use !ask, just remind them. If you do !today, it has all of the commands. So if someone asks a question, run that command so that they know how to put the question over here. And I'll answer this one from the new Tacular. So is a blue screen better than a green screen? I don't think it's better. It's just a matter of how you do things. So because this is the coding garden, my chair is green, and I used to have green hair, and a while back I used to have a plant sitting on my desk. No, I didn't style my mustache on stream, but so I use a blue screen because I want people to be able to see the green. So that's my reasoning for it. Other people might just use a green screen because it's default. Okay. I'm gonna scroll through these, answer the easier ones, and then we'll find one where we can like write some code. How have you adjusted to one monitor only, and what do you think about screen space in general? I don't know when I started. I guess I started doing this when I worked as an instructor. Because when I worked as an instructor, I had to be mobile, right? So like when I was teaching a lesson, I didn't have a big setup with a bunch of screens. If I was doing one-on-ones or helping students, I needed to be able to carry my laptop around. So it was really just out of necessity. Like I learned to use only one screen because I didn't really have an office where I could plug in and have multiple monitors because I was either teaching a lesson or doing one-on-ones or helping students. So I think that's when I started only using one screen. And I mean, you can see this is it. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm literally using my MacBook. There's a screen over there, but that has the like the stream preview and stuff. I will say though, in my newer setup, is it okay to show that over there? I'm gonna do a thing. So you can see over there, there are two monitors, and then I put my laptop there. So I just set all of this up. Like before, it was like a complete mess down here. It wasn't very organized. But I had monitors and a monitor stand that I hadn't set up yet. So I set them up, and I've actually been liking it. So in this case, I would use my laptop monitor in the middle, and then the two vertical monitors on the side. So I'm getting to the idea of multiple monitors. All of that to say, I'm getting instead of just one monitor, I'm getting to the idea of just of multiple monitors. Though, in terms of like screen real estate, like technically, you could use the multi-monitor feature of Mac. So like you can have one monitor here, one monitor there. I know a lot of people that do that, and they just have multiple desktops. I don't. I think for me, having a tiling window manager, so being able to do stuff like this, like half and half, and then also having that this program called Alt Tab, which will show me window previews. That's really how I got used to just using one monitor. So, yeah. So the way I think about screen space is I only use what I need. I don't have a lot of extra stuff open. Yeah, and I am using a left-handed mouse. Yeah. If you check out the gear page, there's a link to it. Okay, I did miss some chats though. Need more backup keyboards, yeah. How do you alt tab with preview? Yeah, and so if you check out my setup document, that has the apps that I use. The one you're looking for is app switching. I use an app called Alt Tab. Yeah, vertical monitors are slick, very slick. Yeah. Yep. You always have VS Code in separate desktop mode? I just never got used to that. I probably could get used to multiple desktops. I don't like having to completely context switch like this. Like I like having all of my windows here and then just alt tabbing to them. I don't know. Yeah. Help. I don't know. I don't have any tips for you, Garden Shoe, in terms of other than I think learning to program is a thing everyone can do. I think people learn at different paces and different speeds, so you may not be able to, depending on how you learn or if you're used to learning, because if you haven't been to school in a long time, it can take a bit to get back up to speed in terms of like learning. But I do like there are a lot of people that have changed their lives by and changed their careers by becoming a programmer. So I think it's a valid thing. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. Yeah. Is it for the new version too? I tried it a year ago and it crashed my Mac to the point where I had to... Oh! Are you talking about Alt-Tab? That's not that. It's this one. They have pretty frequent updates. They're open source. They're on GitHub. Yeah, Fresh Spots is on GitHub. And it is deployed, but... I can't guarantee that your data will stick around because we might have to wipe the database at some point. Have I ever worked with a design system and design tokens? I don't believe so, no. Yeah, and then in terms of that person asked about learning to code, do I have a command, learn to code? I should add one because here's a plug for my YouTube channel. I recently created a playlist called Learning Starts Here. And this is a playlist with just a bunch of beginner-friendly topics that I've covered on Coding Garden before in a quasi-sorted order. So if you start at the top and go down, things get gradually harder and more base knowledge is required. But that's definitely a place to start. I will say, for the most part, my YouTube channel doesn't have like a complete learn to code series or anything like that, but I do have a lot of like one-off videos. Yeah, I'll give you the link. Let me add a command. Learning starts here. Check out this playlist of Coding Garden YouTube videos targeted at beginners. All right. Cool. All right, let's keep answering questions. Yeah. I see a block of text. I'm like, oh, I gotta move on, but also I want to read it. I'm gonna read it. I'm working on some IoT stuff. Somehow ended up with a stack of Golang, React, C, and Postgres. Oh. Is there an ORM or something that would ease up the development, or am I stuck with the default SQL lib? Are you specifically talking about Golang? Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with Golang and ORMs. If anyone in the chat is, feel free to speak up. Is Vox going to be updated like the video archive site? Yeah, so at some point, I don't even know if it'll be before the end of this year, there will be a one-stop shop for everything Coding Garden in terms of being able to search across my videos, being able to ask questions, because that's the other cool thing that we could do with Vox is if we can tie when I answered a question back to the original video, then you have a huge database of, okay, what is a question someone has? They can search across all of the questions that have been asked before, and then they can be directly linked to a video where I answered that question. Like, that's the end goal. Ultimately, if we could get there, that would be amazing. Because it would make so when I do a stream like this where I'm just like talking a bunch and answering a lot of questions, a lot of things get lost because they were only ever talked about on that one stream, and people that weren't there won't know that I answered or talked about that one thing. So eventually, if we could make a site where you could see me answering this question just by searching for the question, that would be amazing. I mean, I think that would be like a huge resource for a lot of people learning things and stuff. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. I will think I'll show a code example for yours, Ricky. Okay. Cool. Oh, thank you, Tommy. You wrote a question in the Discord general channel. Let me pull it up. Because I know you talked about it last time, and then I don't think I saw it. I looked for it, but I couldn't find it. You can't hear for someone else, Timon, but you can upvote a question. Which question were you talking about? I would say upvote it. 2734. Okay. The tricky part is like yeah, so I would say upvote it. That lets me know that you're interested in it, but I don't necessarily want to answer it if they're not here. Though, if we had that whole system that I was talking about, then I wouldn't need to, because I could just send them a link that says, "Hey, your question was answered here." But yeah, there's no way to say someone else is here. Pablo, where is your question? Also, should it be in the help thread? Is it this question? Here. Okay. I would open up a thread in the help forum because as you can see, like, other people started sending message, and then I didn't know if this was like answered or not. Open a thread in the help forum, because then we can start talking about it. Okay, quick answer. I mean, maybe you don't have to open a thread. I don't think you're crazy. I think so. Your general idea is you are creating a reactivity library that is potentially framework agnostic. So you're creating something that basically has like watchers for data changes and a way of doing something when that data changes. In this case, you're saying when the data changes, let's actually set the text content of an element with this ID. So I think in general it's an interesting idea because you're basically separating yourself from the DOM and from the virtual DOM and from anything else. You're just in a generic way. You have a way of keeping track of variables and effects. So it could be interesting because if you can now plug this into any framework, then it's almost like someone could write their code base framework agnostic and then use a what's the word? An adapter to like use that business logic with Vue or use that business logic with React. So I think in general it's an interesting idea. I would say to really like prove your idea, make a couple of examples. So like have your base library that sets up the reactive variables and the effects, and then use it with Vue, and then use it with React, and then use it with vanilla to show how it would plug into those things. Yeah. I will say though that like reactive and ref from Vue are technically framework agnostic. Like you can use those outside of Vue.js. Though, like if you wanted to use them in React, you would need some sort of adapter, right? Because when the data changes, React doesn't know about that. So you would actually have to manually hook up like a watcher on a ref, and when the watcher changes, you call like set state or update or something like that. But yeah. Overall, interesting idea. Cool. I have not used Nuxt in production. I think Nuxt 3 is still a release candidate. For whatever reason. Yeah, it's not. They don't have a full stable release yet. So yeah. Cool. So hopefully that was useful for you, Pablo. I think in general it's a cool idea. I think also in general, like frameworks do things that are so, some of them anyways, do things that are so specific that it may not be a good developer workflow to use a separate library for that. Yeah. Okay. If you have asked a question, type ! here, and those will bubble up. So I can make sure that we're answering questions for people that are still here. We're gonna wait for the ads. Midsummer 2022? It's crazy to me. So when Vue 3 came out, the way they talked about it and the way they showed it, it really seemed like it was going to be fairly easy for projects to migrate to Vue 3. But like you look at Nuxt as an example, like this is what people use to do hybrid server-side rendering in the Vue.js world. Like this is comparable to like Next.js. But yeah, it's crazy that it's not completely stable yet. And then also Vuetify, their version 3 is not stable yet. Soon. Yeah. And it's great. Like, I mean, I understand it. Like, Vuetify is a massive, massive library. And, like, they especially would have to rewrite things because a lot of the internals changed in Vue 3. And they're the kind of library that would be using those internal features. Whereas, like, if you're just a consumer of Vue, like just building, like, a basic app with it, the migration from that to Vue 3 isn't that hard. You just swap out a few things and you're good to go. But if you're using the more internal pieces of Vue, then it takes longer. So that's probably what Nuxt and Vuetify are up against. I don't know. Yeah, and it's like I don't think this was as bad as when Angular released Angular 2. That was a catastrophe. It's not that bad. Especially because a lot of the things that Vue 3 provides more so incentivize people from the React world to like maybe try out Vue. But yeah. I mean, I don't know the team size of Nuxt or Vuetify, so I can't speak to that. So I mean, that's another thing as well. Like a huge library, maybe they don't have as many core contributors. But yeah. All right, are the ads over? Where did this question come from? You asked it a year ago, one computer guy. That's funny. I can answer it really quick. What is life? Should a new developer try to invest more time learning React or Vue instead of new frameworks like Solid or the other way around? So I should have a fairly quick answer for this. If your goal is to get a job, then avoid the newer stuff, because anywhere you're going to get hired for the most part is going to be used something battle tested and that's been around for a long time, like React or Vue, or even Angular. The newer frameworks offer really interesting things. Like the way Solid does stuff is very enticing because it looks like React, but at the end of the day, it's going to be faster. It doesn't have a virtual DOM. You don't have to worry about like where you put your effects and stuff like that. Really cool ideas. But if you're looking to get a job, then you probably need to learn something that is more established. If you're looking to just explore what's out there, and let's say you're in charge of a team that potentially gets to choose the tech stack for the next app that you're working on, absolutely try these things, because then you can know whether or not you want to like put all of your time and effort into actually using those things. So yeah. What are my opinions on Flutter? I think it's really cool. I only did some basic development with Flutter. As far as I know, they are coming out with, or at least the Flutter for web, I think, is out of beta? Or is it? Yeah, so that's an interesting concept as well. This could be interesting to do because I've never done it. So the last time I looked into Flutter, the Flutter for web was not fully supported yet. I think it was still like beta or whatever else. But first of all, if you don't know what Flutter is, it is a cross-platform development development framework, development SDK. It allows you to build native Android apps, native iOS apps, web app. Now you can build web apps all from the same code base. Does it let you do desktop apps too? Flutter desktop is cool. Well, apparently it does. Does this use Electron behind the scenes, or what does it use? Or is it completely native? So I don't know, but ultimately, like a lot of frameworks are like trying to reach this idea of complete cross compatibility, right? So you have one code base, and with that one code base, you can build. Oh, so it's native all the way. That's cool. With that one code base, you can build native Mac apps, native Windows apps, native iOS apps, native Android apps, and also now you can create web apps. So the underlying idea of having a single code base that will work for multiple platforms is like kind of like the pinnacle of development, because you have less code bases to manage. You have more shared code, so it's an interesting idea overall. The only thing is you have to do things the Flutter way. So you have to learn how Flutter works, and learn how to build apps with Flutter so that they'll work across platform. And it might be a scenario where you might have to write a little bit of custom code for each of the platforms that you're trying to support, but like the majority of the code can be shared across them. Let's just see. I'm on a Mac. I don't actually want to write an app. I want to show you the code that would go into an app like this. Like this. So it uses a language called Dart, which comes from Google. And for a while, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but for a while, and maybe they still think this way, but Dart was being like advertised as almost like a replacement for JavaScript. And I think there was a build of Chrome at one point that actually supported Dart natively. Am I wrong in thinking that? But in an alternate universe, Dart won out over TypeScript. In an alternate universe, but TypeScript is the thing that everyone uses now, instead of Dart. But I think they were initially like marketing it as like potentially web browsers will support this language, but they don't. They don't. But it's its own custom language. It's its own custom language, and you use that language now with Flutter. So import material. So because Flutter comes from Google and Dart comes from Google, they do support material design out of the box because material design is a Google thing. So you can create an app. You have a widget with a title. You have a home that has an app bar, and then a body that just has some centered text. So this is how you would create that. And they have a way of taking this, turning it into a website. They have a way of taking this, turning it into an iOS app, turning it into an Android app, etc. So what are my thoughts on it? If you like the Dart language, if you like their development ecosystem, and you need to build cross-platform apps, try it. Go for it. There are other options. Like for the only other thing I can think of that does like complete cross-platform like this is Quasar. There are probably others, but Quasar, I forgot that we have. I'm going to leave dark mode on. But Quasar uses capacitor and electron. So capacitor if you're building native mobile apps, and electron if you're building desktop apps. Which means that your mobile apps will actually be hybrid web, so it'll be like a web view running on as a native mobile app, and then your native desktop app will be running inside of Electron, which is a Chromium shell. So that's way different than what Flutter does, because Flutter builds a native app for each of the platforms. I don't even know how to get it. Yeah, and then people have talked about .NET MAUI, though every time it comes up, everyone's like, maybe they didn't like the beta or something, but they were just like, I've had so many issues with .NET MAUI. But this is from Microsoft, and it's a similar idea. You have one .NET code base, and you can build native apps for all of these platforms. Though, I don't think they support web. Maybe they do with like Blazor or something like that. I don't know. And yeah, I've used Ionic. So I have there's a production app out there that's still in use that was built with Ionic. And it was fine. I would say if I had to build an app again, I would just use Capacitor. I do not like the Ionic components. They're very fragile and they're very finicky to work with. I'm trying to come up with the right words. They're like, or how to describe my experience working with Ionic components. Ionic components were written as web components first. So they're written as web components. And then if you want to use these components in a React app or in a Vue app, they have written wrappers. So basically, they have written React components that wrap these web components so that you can use it with React or something like that in a way. But my experience with it was because it wasn't designed for React first, things were not as I expected or a little bit harder to customize if they weren't exposed to React in the right way. So that was my main issue with the components. Capacitor is what they use under the hood for native features. And you can actually use this directly without Ionic. This gives you access to native device features like the gyroscope, native GPS, background activities, the kind of things that you would need native mobile code to do. You can do with Capacitor, but your app can still be running in a web view. So I would probably use this with either my own custom component library or even just like Material UI if I was using React or something like that. I don't know. I guess the interesting thing, though, is because their component library has custom styling depending on the platform that it's running on, which is nice, which is something you don't really get from a lot of these other frameworks. So, for instance, if we look at a button, Ion buttons. Do I get to see the... Where do I see the preview? Here. So when this button is rendered on iOS, it'll look like this. When it's rendered on Android, it'll look like this. So that's an interesting thing about their component library is you write your code once that looks like this, but then depending on the platform that you build to, it will look more native. Apparently there's not a web component option anymore. So yeah, somebody mentioned that they have newer stuff. So maybe they rewrote all of their components. I don't know. It is interesting to be able to write the same code, but it looks more native depending on the platform that it's deployed to. I think like with Flutter, you don't necessarily get that, especially if you're doing custom styling, because your styles have to be applied. I mean, you probably could write custom styles depending on the platform, but you would potentially have to do that. I don't know. I missed a bunch of support events. I don't think I even acknowledged all of the support events. We need to do that. I don't know if my... Maybe my alerts aren't on? Yeah. Are there less and less native coders these days? It would appear so. I will say that at the last company I worked at, which is was a software consultancy, they hired native iOS devs and native Android devs. So it depends. I think there are a lot of people switching to hybrid stuff. And what's up, Murdoch? Welcome in. I missed all these supports. BTRSL with the 5-month resub. Thank you very much. She says, I challenged myself to watch all the videos that I've missed since July. 40 videos to go and more coming. I'm going to catch up. My goal is both improve my English skills and learn a lot. Well, that's awesome. Glad to hear that, BTRSL. I have a lot of videos and a lot of streams. So, I mean, I don't want to throw a wrench in it, but are you looking at the Coding Garden archive as well? Because the Coding Garden archive was created like 3 months ago, and it has all of the recent VODs. I guess all the way back to... this has pretty much all of the VODs for the year 2022, and then the main Coding Garden channel has VODs from then and before that. So it is a lot of videos. So I think... does YouTube tell me how many videos I have? I don't know. Regardless, thank you for your dedication. And it's interesting to think about that you would watch my videos not only to learn how to code, but also learn how to speak English. That's actually really cool. Yeah, I completely agree, the Rugged Bear. So in terms of are there still native developers, there's a lot of variables. So what does the team need? What is their budget? What are they trying to achieve? So yeah. About doesn't say how many videos. Yeah, no worries, system. I'm glad to look. Look at this. I have 5 million views across my main YouTube channel. That's crazy to think about. Thank you, Hushu. 502 videos on the main channel, and then many on the archive channel as well. And Apukan Tilde, thank you very much for the resub. All the way, I'm not even gonna worry about it, but there's a lot. Thank you, BTRSL, for being dedicated. Thank you for the Prime sub. Hopefully, my videos do help with your English, and hopefully you learn something as well. Crafty Becky, thank you for the 3 months. The Shebots with the gift, thank you. Andrew with the 20 months, whose birthday was yesterday, and they are now 228 months old. Nice. I'm gonna figure out your real age. 19. Nice. Here, we'll sing happy birthday to Andrew. And then who else mentioned it was their birthday? Someone else did. But RockFX, thanks for the Prime. Licky the Chameleon with the sub. It's Shaman with the gift. Shark Turn Up with the gift. Type 1 with the resub. J Belt Rami with the sub as well. Thank you all for the supports. Let's sing a song. I don't want to know how many months old I am. That's funny. Cool. Should we go wide angle for this? Happy birth. I have to remember what key this is in. To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Andrew. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to everybody's birthdays who's in October. Happy birthday to you. Nice. Nice. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the claps. Yeah, well, so I think the copyright on Happy Birthday is gone at this point. I think anyone's allowed to sing Happy Birthday. It used to be that you needed special licensing to sing it. Cool. 502 vids. And thank you, Bensi Kurtzy. Thank you very much for that prime. Are you? Oh! You all weren't even hearing the notifications either. I had it completely turned down. That should fix it. Sorry about that, everybody. But what are my opinions on Flutter? I think if you're trying to do cross-platform stuff, I think if you like the Dart language, I think if you like how Flutter works overall, give it a try. I don't know if I would use it. It would depend on my needs as well, like what kind of apps I'm actually trying to build. I think like if you're really just focusing on like mobile development and you want to use web technologies to build mobile, then you could potentially use Ionic or React Native. I don't know. I think for anyone that already knows web tech, Flutter is less enticing because you do have to learn a new language and a new like ecosystem. Whereas if you were to use React Native or NativeScript or Ionic, you can use what you already know about web dev. So that's a thing. Okay, if you've asked a question, type exclamation mark here. It'll bubble up. And I'll do my best to answer it. 2 months ago, Oscar did ask, will I do mobile stuff? I don't have anything planned, but I want to. I mean, so I talked about the grand vision for the Coding Garden website and the Coding Garden app. And it would be nice to have a mobile app as well. I mean, technically, there is a Coding Garden mobile app out there in beta, but I never added any extra features to it or anything like that. Okay, let's answer this one from Chai Tea Coder. What's the best way to gather data for small projects when there isn't much available? For example, a strategies and tips site for a game like Citizen Sleeper. I guess it just seems harder to base the content of a site based on your own experience and knowledge without something to back it up. Thanks. Yeah, and this is just more of a general, like, really even like app idea or content idea. Because ultimately, like, with this app project or app that you're building, like, you are actually providing a lot of the value, because if those strategies and tips don't exist elsewhere, then you technically do have to come up with them yourself. So I've never really done anything like this. Yeah, and I think that's really my answer, is like, do your best to find the info. So look through like wikis or fandoms, or look through like Reddit, maybe try to find a forum. I guess the other aspect here is you could potentially ask for input from people. So you find experts in the field, or people that are an expert at this game, and then have tips to offer, and get that info from them. I mean, maybe you pay them for their time, or maybe you start a wiki so that people can start adding that data. But I mean, that could be an app idea in and of itself. Like you build a platform that's like Wikipedia and that people can contribute to it, but you allow people to add data in a more consumable way, so that way you could turn it into an API that could be consumed by other apps. What I mean by that is, like, Wikipedia is like very text focused, right? Like, it's a lot of information. Oh, and apparently my thing isn't running anymore. Huh. A lot of info, but it's not consumable. Like, there's not exactly like an API way of getting a JSON object that like represents this data, but you could potentially build a platform that allows people to add data in a way that it could be available as an API. And so it's almost like your entire project is to collect that info from people that are experts in Citizen Sleeper or whatever game you're working on. So hopefully that helps. I've never done anything like this, so I don't think I have any good advice for you. So yeah. What's my opinion on JVM Texan languages? They're fine. So JVM stands for the Java Virtual Machine. Let's look up JVM languages, because I know there's Kotlin, there's Java. What else is there? Scala, Groovy, Clojure. These actually are all really cool languages, I think. I think Java gets a bad rap because it's been around for so long, and it's because it's owned by Oracle. But like, Scala is cool. And Tiege, what's up? Thank you for the raid. It's been a long time. Long time. Shouts out to Tiege. What were you working on today? NeoVim and Rust. Nice. Anything particular in Rust that you were working on? Yeah, thank you for the raid. Really appreciate that. And also, check this out. Everyone, click that follow button. I don't see it because I'm already following. But because I'm following, you should follow too. You should see a drop-down. In the drop-down, click follow. You're making Vim 9 script to Lua transpiler written in Rust. Interesting. So, I don't know a lot about like Vim or NeoVim or anything like that, but I guess Lua is the language used to, I imagine it's a long story, but Lua is the language used to customize NeoVim, right? And then Vim 9 script is the language used to customize Vim. Is that accurate? And you're making it so that you can take the customizations you wrote for Vim so that they will work with NeoVim? Is that in the ballpark of what you were working on? I should start using NeoVim. I don't use Vim or NeoVim at all. It would take a long time for me to get used to. Like my workflow is already with Visual Studio Code, or really with any text editor. Yeah, we use Lua for NeoVim, Vim 9 script, a new link. I watched the Primogen's video where he talked about how this was a really bad decision that Vim made in that they came up with their own scripting language. But cool. Glad to hear it. Hopefully that's working out well for you. Everyone that came in, you have arrived at the Coding Garden. We are currently answering some questions. This question just came from BTRSL, and they asked, what are my opinions on JVM Texan languages? So we were just getting into like, what is the JVM? What are some JVM languages? But if you have a question, you can ask it here, and I'll try and get to it. Yeah, they came up with their own scripting language again. Yeah. I mean, how about this? If I write some code today, like if somebody asks a question that is coding related, maybe I'll try NeoVim. Maybe I'll try it. I mean, I'm showing my ignorance here. So is NeoVim like a standalone desktop app, or is it a command line editor just like Vim? I always thought of it as like a desktop app that like hosts Vim, something like that. Yeah. See you later, Tish. Thanks for the raid. Thanks for dropping in. It's a CLI editor. Okay, so it's still like Vim in that it's running inside of my terminal. Cool. All right, well, I'm going to pin this tab, and maybe I'll install it in just a little bit. Just a little bit. NeoVide is the desktop wrapper. Okay, so to this question from BTRSL about what's my opinion on JVM Texan languages. First of all, these are the languages, and they all run inside of the Java virtual machine. So if you're not familiar with how Java works, essentially the Java code that you write will get compiled into what's known as intermediate language. And then that intermediate language can run anywhere the Java virtual machine is supported. So that's how they achieve cross-platform compatibility with Java. Basically, there's a Java virtual machine implementation that runs on Windows. There's one that runs on Mac. There's one that runs on... Is there one on Android? Can you run Java? Oh, obviously. No, obviously, because apps are written in Java or Kotlin on Android. I don't know if there's a JVM for iOS. But basically, that's how they achieve cross-platform compatibility, is that they have a virtual machine that can run on any one of those operating systems. It was custom implemented for each one of those operating systems, but now you can write code in Java and it runs in multiple places. So NeoVim is a fork of Vim. Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to look into it. See, like, obviously, I'm showing my ignorance. I don't use Vim. I don't use NeoVim, so I'd have to learn like what it offers and stuff like that. But what I was mentioning is like Scala actually is a pretty cool language. So this is a functional programming language. I've seen some examples with it before, and it looks pretty cool. So like Scala is cool. Kotlin is cool too. This is the newer language they released that you can use to write Android apps. And it has a cool syntax. And then Groovy, the name Groovy is just cool. So like everything in the JVM is cool except for Java. Like, and I mentioned that like Java gets a bad rap just because like it's owned by Oracle. It's been around for a really long time. I don't know. Everything else is cool. I like it. And then Clojure is a Lisp. If you've never heard of a Lisp, that's a list programming language. So when you look at examples of Lisps, there's just parentheses everywhere. Let me see if we can find an example of Clojure. It's just parentheses all the way down. Yeah, look at these. So this is Hello World in Clojure. I have maybe once in my life written in a Lisp, and maybe once or twice in my life written in a more functional programming language. So I wrote a little bit of Haskell, but it's a completely different way of thinking. If you're using like a programming language that's like purely a functional programming language, like I know, so I use a lot of JavaScript. There's a lot of functional aspects of JavaScript, but if you look at like a Lisp, or if you look at more functional programming languages like Haskell, like I can't even comprehend them. It would take me a while to get into that mode of thinking. So, yeah. What's my opinion? All of the surrounding languages are pretty cool. I think they have a lot of cool ideas. And then the fact that all of these languages run on the JVM means that they can run cross-platform. So that's pretty cool. And then in general, like if you are a newer programmer to the tech scene, in that maybe you just graduated from college or you're trying to learn to code, there are a lot of large enterprise companies that use Java. Java is an enterprise language, and what that means is you could potentially get a somewhat cushy job where you don't have to do that much, but you can still get a decent paycheck writing Java. And I guess I'm being kind of mean when I talk about it that way, because there are legitimate products and apps built with Java, but you do tend to see more. You do tend to see more Java apps written for enterprise, which are larger companies, that kind of thing. So my thoughts on it are, if you're going to be writing those kinds of apps, sure, go for it. Personally, if I wanted to do something like Java, I would do C# instead. So C# is like Microsoft Java. C hashtag. Where's the hashtag on my keyboard? No, I don't want C. I want C hashtag. C#? This one. So C# came from Microsoft, and they have a similar idea. So instead of the Java version, yeah, I know this. I shouldn't diss Java like this. I mean, Java was one of my first programming languages. It's what I learned in college. I have a computer science degree. But yeah, so C#. So like Java has the Java virtual machine, C# has the .NET runtime, and it's a similar idea in that it can be cross-platform. But here's the thing. Java is owned by Oracle, large corporation. They have a lot of what's the thing? A lot of I don't even know what I want to say. C# and .NET in recent years have pieces of it have become open source. Having an open source ecosystem means there's a lot more like community packages and community support and all of that good stuff. So I would probably choose C# over Java, but that's just me. And then I saw somebody asking about cross-site scripting. You can try your darndest. Try your darndest to cross-site script me, but I've been doing this a long time, and people have tried to hack it for a long time as well. And we have some pretty good protections against it. But you can try. You can try your best to cross-site script. even so my overlay will render things. I mean, so the fun part is you can do things like this. Font family? Is this how this works? Hello. That didn't work. But if you put I don't know the syntax. But technically, like, the font tag works. You can even do like a marquee tag, like this. Oh, and actually, you can't though. So if you're not following, then you can't. You have to be following for at least 30 minutes before you can try. That's just an incentive to follow. Yeah. Okay. Did I miss some other stuff? And I apologize. So the Sheboss, huge supporter of the channel. They write Java. Here's what I'll say. You write Java because you got hired at a company that writes Java. I think you're also capable of writing other things. Just because I say Java is bad, or I mean, I didn't say Java is bad directly, but just because I diss on Java doesn't mean I'm dissing on you. Hopefully it comes across that way. I don't know. But I think that's, so here, but just to take a quick aside, that's actually what we run into when we do things like bash on other languages and stuff. Like, people feel bad. Like, the Sheboss probably doesn't have a choice to write Java because she writes Java at her job. But by me saying that, like, I don't like it or other various things like that, if I didn't clarify it, then she could think that I'm actually attacking her. And a lot of people do, the languages and things that they know, they internalize that, and like that's part of their identity. So when someone attacks it, you're kind of attacking them as well. I don't know. Oh, why am I standing? It makes me a little bit more lively, I guess. Yeah, I can point at the screen. I can move around. That's why I'm saying. Also, it's better for my back. I went through a long stint of only sitting, and really a combination of sitting, standing is better for my back. Yeah. That's the most common misconception of C#.NET after so many years. .NET is cross-platform. Mono is also outdated. .NET itself is cross-platform. Oh, wait, what did... Oh, Microsoft made C# just for Windows. Initially, they did, yeah, but technically, they actually have a specification for the .NET runtime and for the C# language. Like, there are standards-based specifications written. They were just the only implementation, except for Mono, which used to let us run .NET stuff on, like, Linux or Mac. But I think even Mono got in trouble for some of the stuff they were doing because Microsoft was so, like, proprietary and closed back in the day. These days, you don't need Mono anymore. Well, I mean, I think really Mono has kind of just been absorbed into .NET in one way or another. They've made it .NET itself cross-platform, but then a lot of the Mono products, like Mono Develop used to be an IDE that was cross-platform. That is now Visual Studio on a Mac. But it used to be Mono Develop. And there's various other Mono stuff. Yeah, it's really interesting that Oracle keeps Java, like, so closed or so locked down. I don't know. Yeah, you are not your code. Yeah, and I think this is the other thing, like the other idea along that you have to think about when you're doing like code reviews and stuff like that. Like, someone who is giving you I guess there's various ways to give a code review, right? You could give a code review that's really mean, and you actually could make personal attacks in a code review. What I'm saying is, in a code review, I should be able to talk about your code separate from you. Now, I realize that you wrote the code, but you are not the code. I believe that you are a smart, capable person that can write better code, which is why I am giving you these insights into what I think is wrong with the code. But I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying your code is wrong. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Taxer. Much appreciated. What is that long can next to your water bottle? Oh, it's beans. Those are baked beans, and it's not a long can, it's 2 cans. It's a stream meme. And we actually even have an emote for it. Coding beans. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, like, this is definitely like a talking about programmers as if they're children, but it's a similar idea. Like, you gain certain attachments, you gain certain identities based on the things that you use and the things that you do, which can make it hard to receive criticism or different things like that. But yeah. Yeah. 2760. Yeah. So basically, well, also if you're, I think if you're not a trusted user, it just strips out any HTML. There are various things that just get stripped out completely. Current delay, like stream delay? I think you can figure that out on Twitch. Let's see. I think if you, like, wait for the video to load. Like, settings, advanced, video stats. There's a way to see latency to streamer. I don't know. There's a way to do it. Yeah, I get what you're saying, system. Cool. Oh yeah, I appreciate that, Top Boy. I'm doing my best. I'm also just trying to spread good vibes, positivity, cheer, all that stuff. I don't know. But through my actions, right? Through how I talk about things, through how I teach things, I'm not overtly like holier than thou or anything like that. I'm human too. I don't know. Mr. Evil has a question. I was wondering if there's a framework or a library that you would allow to query permissions on the local network drive, or to have to use something like C#, Java, or PowerShell. I'm trying to figure out what you're asking, but basically you have a network drive. There are files on that network drive, and you want to see what are the permissions of those files. And Sunny, thank you very much for that prime. This guy codes. Is that what you're asking? Like, you want to see, does a folder have read permission or write permission, that kind of thing? Is that what you're asking? If that's what you're asking, any general purpose programming language that can read from the file system will work. So Java will work, C# will work. If you're doing scripting, you probably could figure out file permissions from even like Bash, if it's a Unix-based system or Linux-based system. But let me know if that's what you're asking. Yeah. Oh, it was there? Okay, I missed it. I'm not going to look again, though. I remember using NetBeans a long time ago. Long time ago. What is the beans meme? We were working on this app called the Inventory app, where we essentially modeled a SQL database. Is there a command? Yeah, there it is. If you look at the playlist on YouTube, it's a bunch of videos, but the first video is a pretty popular video on my YouTube channel on just how to design a SQL database. And ultimately, we were just designing a database that would host an inventory system. And then we talked about all the possibilities, and we talked about normalization and all of that good stuff. And then we started to actually implement the database. But when we were doing that, we were using cans of baked beans as an example, because this is a can of baked beans. This is also a can of baked beans, but they have features that are not the same in that they might have two different expiration dates. They might have two different purchase prices. They might have two different places they were purchased from. I guess that's mainly it, but there are various features about these that are unique to each of these cans, and so we talked about that in our database design. Whereas they share information like the manufacturer and the product type, but there are various things that they don't share, and so we use that to talk about. Well, that happened last night. It was like 1 a.m. and my neighbor... Okay, they stopped it. My neighbor's car alarm went off for like 10 minutes. They did not stop it for like 10 minutes. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but yeah. I don't work anywhere. This is what I do right now, so yeah. Do you want to build something that relays WebRTC? Which tech stack would you use in the infrastructure for WebRTC? If you do !ask, it'll show up over here with that question. Does a user have rewrite permissions? Yeah, you would need some general purpose programming language that can do that. So I mean, Node.js can do that. C# can do that. Pretty much anything that allows you to read or write from the file system will allow you to get like a file descriptor of that file to see, does this user have permissions to write it, that kind of thing. How do you know when you're ready for the job hunt as someone who is self-taught? I think if you have a decent enough portfolio. So if you're self-taught, that means you don't have a computer science degree that you can put on your resume. It means that you had to teach yourself everything. Now, in order to get a job, you need to be able to show those people that you are capable of doing this thing, because you don't have a degree in it and you probably don't have job experience with it. So what that means is you need some kind of public portfolio. You need to have apps that you've written, potentially hosted on GitHub. You need to have a profile, like a portfolio, so that you can showcase those apps. And really, that applies to people that are self-taught. Now, if you have a computer science degree or, so if you were formally taught, you typically don't need a portfolio, because people will, or companies will look at the fact that you have a degree as your, whether or not you can do the thing. But if you're self-taught, you have to prove it in some way. So I would say if you have a portfolio, if you have a good resume, if you have a good like online presence, then you're probably ready for the job hunt, because essentially any place you apply to needs to be able to go to your portfolio or go to your GitHub repo and see what you're actually capable of. Yeah. Oh, we're still working on fresh spots every Friday. The stream went down last Friday, so we rescheduled the stream for Saturday. So we did a stream on this past Saturday for fresh spots, but tune in Friday. We're going to be talking about fresh spots again. Do I like the idea of using pre-commit hooks? Yeah, any project I was on that had a team, we used pre-commit hooks, because that just prevented devs from accidentally pushing something that wasn't linted or wasn't tested. So, yeah. Yeah. I'm doing a master's in information technology. Despite this, my subjects were more computer science related, but I still think that IT master's doesn't sound as good as CS. It's true. Like, it's weird how language can do that. Like, you might have even learned more things or more like relevant things in your IT degree versus a computer science degree, but yeah, computer science just sounds more, I don't know, smarter. It sounds smarter. I don't know. What about job hunting with an associate's degree instead of a bachelor's degree? I think the same thing applies. Correct me if I'm wrong, because like an associate's degree is typically a general degree, or can you have an associate's degree in computer science? I always thought an associate's degree was like general education, probably like 2 or so years of college, but not an actual major. And if that's the case, then you still need to prove in some way that you know how to code. An associate's degree in IT, then probably not. I think, if it's related to the field that you're trying to get a job in, you're probably fine. The one thing you might run up against is there are some companies that require a bachelor's degree, which is unfortunate. It's usually like larger enterprises. Like, I think what it comes down to is their intake form for new hires doesn't have a spot to put an associate's degree, or doesn't have a way to say this person doesn't have a degree. So they have an entire company policy that's like, oh, the system doesn't support it, so we're only going to hire people that have a bachelor's degree. But you'll need to find a company that will hire you with just an associate's degree. Yeah. And that's the other thing. So like the portfolio and your resume get you in the door, right? That starts the conversation. You still have to prove that you know how to code, and that's going to be in a coding interview of some kind. But having that portfolio, having that resume, having that online presence is basically a way of telling that employer that, or showing them that, hey, this person, at least on the surface, seems like they know what they're doing. So let's bring them in for a chat. Yeah. Time to take a look at pr.new? Sure. Am I about to get fished? StackBlitz Codeflow? IT is having to fix printers all day. It's interesting. So I used to work at the help desk at my university, and I was getting a computer science degree, but the majority of the people working at the help desk were getting an IT degree. And then at my first job, it was a really large enterprise, and a lot of the people there just had IT degrees, but they got hired on to do similar stuff that I was doing, like programming and stuff like that. It's interesting. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, a lot of like larger corporations know that they need to train you anyways. So, yeah. Yeah, and I would hope that it went away. The idea that a company will not hire someone without a bachelor's degree, because we're in a day and an age where people can know how to do things. They can be smart. They can teach themselves without having to go to a university. And I also think we're reaching a point where companies are realizing that just because someone has a bachelor's degree doesn't mean they actually know how to do the thing. Now, obviously, that depends. It depends on the university that they went to. It depends on the person itself. But, I mean, I would argue that a lot of computer science graduates actually don't know how to program that well. Like, they know theory. They know the, like, if statements and for loops and stuff like that, but they've never actually worked on a large application. Like, they don't know application architecture. They don't necessarily know how to work on teams. Obviously, that varies. I'm not saying every computer science graduate is that way. I was that way. I knew what programming was. I still had no idea how the real world worked even after getting a computer science degree. So I don't know. Oh, VConf is happening? I saw somebody, somebody linked this on the Discord. Yeah, and it started today. Maybe... should we watch it live together? Is that a thing I can do? There's so many talks. Let's put that on the back burner, but maybe after we're done answering questions, we just like watch VConf together. That could be interesting. Do you think having an associate's in IT with a portfolio will help me potentially bypass a bachelor's degree requirement? Possibly. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but like the Geek mentioned, certain companies don't necessarily have that anymore, but yeah. Yeah. I feel like a lot of companies are no longer valuing CS degrees. Yeah, it's probably a thing. The thing is, like, I haven't interviewed for a company in, like, 5 or 6 years. And even then, I only interviewed at, like, 2 companies. Like, I do not have a lot of insight. The only insight I have are the interviews that I ran, and the interviews that I ran were very different than any interview I was ever in, because I tried to have a more practical interview, and that the person it wasn't like a whiteboarding interview or like a reverse a string. It was, here's an existing React app. Can you pull a story and implement a feature? Which I think was a really good indicator of, like, should we hire this person? Are they going to be a good person to work with? But I've never been in any other kinds of interview processes or anything like that. I don't know. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it then. I'll do it. I mean, I'll confirm. One person in chat told me I could do it. I'll confirm that I can like restream it. But yeah, welcome in, Sadokon. Glad to have you. Practical is better than theoretical. Yeah. I mean, people would argue that, like, and I would kind of argue that, like, I have all of these unconscious competencies, right? There's all these things I learned in college for my computer science degree in terms of, like, how operating systems work and how memory management works and all of this, like, lower level stuff. And I don't use that on a regular basis, like, ever. And Lou, thank you very much for that resub. Everything's gonna be okay. But I don't know how much that actually influenced, like, how I write React code or JavaScript code, because it might a little bit. Like, I'm more aware of like too much iteration or potentially too much memory usage, that kind of thing. Whereas if I didn't have that theoretical background, maybe I wouldn't be able to think in that way. I don't know. What do you got here? Nice. And welcome in, Isiri Jatohe. Welcome in. You have a theory on MDN? What do you mean by that? Lower level thinking? Yeah. I don't know where the submissions are, system, but I don't think I'm actually going to do that anytime soon. Yeah. I've been coding like over 17 years at this point. Professionally, like 11 or 12 years, but I coded a lot before I went to school for it and before I did it professionally. I do. If you check out the frequently asked questions, I think I talk about it there. There might even be an outdated number on there as well. All right, let's answer some more questions. If you asked a question, type exclamation mark here. It'll bubble up. If you want to ask a question, do exclamation mark ask. It will show up on this webpage. Ask your question with exclamation mark ask, Arpats, because that way it'll show up over here, so I don't lose it. All right. This question comes from Procrastinating Watching CJ. It says, how do I get Apache eCharts working with Vue, consuming JSON APIs? It's very specific, but let's look into see what... I've never heard of Apache eCharts, so let's see what they are. An open source JavaScript visualization library. Oh. Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through my process. The first thing I would do is to see if somebody has already written a Vue wrapper. Open what time? Oh, this. Oh, thank you. What was I coding before I was doing it for school or work? Just whatever I wanted to. I mean, these were the days of MySpace, so I was making like custom MySpace profiles, doing like Flash development, other stuff like that. Okay, here's the first thing I would search for though is Apache eCharts Vue. Let's see if somebody's already done it, because oh, and somebody has done it. But ultimately, when you come across a JavaScript library like this, it typically does direct DOM manipulation, meaning it's literally creating elements, updating elements, and stuff like that. Which means if you want to use this library with something like Vue, you will have to put a custom wrapper around it. I mean, and you could do it yourself, but what we just found is somebody's already done it. Vue eCharts. And can I see the source code? Show me the example, please. Let's look at the docs, I guess. Apparently it supports Vue 3. Cool. Here we go. We can look at the code here. So we have a use from eCharts that lets us use specific types of charts. And then where's the template? Oh, here it is. So they have a component called vchart, and then they pass in the options, which come from over here. And these options, I'm guessing somewhere says that it is a pie chart. Yeah, so I would say check out this library because they've already done the hard work. If you don't want to use the library directly, you can see how they did it in their GitHub repo. So if we look at we're going to go source code diving now. We're going to see how did they implement this chart component. It's probably like this. Let's see. Yeah, so they're creating a component called eCharts. It has refs to all of the underlying elements that eChart will actually render out. And then they probably have a template of some kind. I guess they don't necessarily need a template. I don't know. You could look through their repo to see how they've actually implemented it. So that's my answer to you is, first of all, if you want to use something with Vue, see if it already exists, and then if it already does, use it. There might be some other ones out there as well. But for example, if we just see, all right, what does it take to build a pie chart? Can I see examples? Examples here. Pie. And then can I see the source code? Okay, here's the source code. Get element by ID. Init the charts by passing in that element reference, and then set the options. So if I wanted to do this in a Vue component myself, I would actually need a ref to like the root element of the template. So view3 ref. So a ref lets you, I mean, I just wanted to go to the view docs, but maybe this article is good. A ref lets you get access to a specific DOM element. View element ref. Template refs. Here we go. Like this. So this makes it so that you get access to that ref inside of your JavaScript, meaning you can access the actual DOM element, and then you can use that to pass into eCharts. So you would almost have like a onMount function in your component, and when it mounts, initialize eCharts with that specific DOM element. If you wanted to do it from scratch, I would say check out that other library, though. Cool. Thank you for your question. I'll answer this one from RPATS. Do I use templating like EJS? Do I have any preferences? I don't do server-side rendering at all. At all. Maybe a little bit, like maybe every now and then I'll do server-side rendering. But let's talk about what EJS even is. So this is it's called embedded JavaScript. It's a templating language. And you typically combine this with something like Express.js. But what it lets you do is you can have a template that looks like this, and then you can render that out. So you compile the template and you can render it out. If you're using it with like Express, you don't have to do this manually. You basically just hook up the view engine, and it will, if a specific page needs to be rendered, it'll invoke the EJS renderer under the hood. But isn't it basically how Edge works? What do you mean by that, the Rugged Bear, in terms of like server-side rendering? But how can I talk about this? So, not that I only use front-end frameworks. I do a lot of back-end work, but my back-ends do not render HTML. The back-ends that I build pretty much only respond with JSON data, and then I consume them in some way, typically using a front-end framework. But that same JSON data could be consumed by a mobile app or like a desktop app. But that's how I build most of my stuff. Now, these days, you don't really need to do that as much anymore, because you could use something like Next.js, which kind of like combines your front end and your back end all into one. And then with something like Next.js, you don't even think about like, is this going to be server-side rendered or not? You just write the code, and then Next.js handles, oh, well, on initial page render, yeah, it'll be server-side rendered. But then after that, it'll behave like a single-page application. So yeah, this actually could be a fun thing to explore. And we could, should I? I haven't registered for any of these comps. You know what it is? I've been to a lot of conferences in person, and I am like a very introverted and shy person. And basically every conference I've ever been to, was just, I mean, and it's my own fault. Like, I am not good at like introducing myself to people and meeting new people. And so like every time I go to an event like this, there's just like overwhelming social anxiety. That's a me thing, of course, but like, I think a lot of these conferences don't necessarily like, they don't do anything that would help people that are in that kind of situation. Even if it wasn't physical, like I know that this, like even VConf is remote, but I honestly will probably never go to a conference in person ever again. Even like like I'm a decent speaker. Look at me. I'm speaking on Twitch right now. People are watching me. People want to hear what I have to say. I could come up with a conference talk. And honestly, I think that would actually help, because then when people come up to me, like they're asking me about the thing that I talked about. The other issue though is like I don't give conference talks. Like, for example, let's just see the talks that are happening right now. I think we're like right here-ish. Maybe not. Honestly, the the talk titles at VConf are my kind of talk titles, and that they're technical, and that they are. Oh, Thea was speaking at VConf. That's awesome. But the talks that I give are just extremely informative. Like, I don't really have opinion pieces or different things like that. And most conferences are typically like, at least from what I see, the talks that are given are like they're think pieces, and they're like very well prepared and all of that. Whereas the talks that I like to give are very hands-on. I like to show code examples. I like to live code, and that is not usually what people want to see. I don't know. Theo's talk is called framework section. What does that mean? What what talk is Theo giving? I don't think they have the name of his talk. Am I wrong? Anybody here know Theo or know if he's giving a talk? And it's only 4 minutes. I think something's wrong with the schedule, right? Oh, he introed them. Okay. That would make sense. I don't know. I don't know. All of that to say that, like, I'm not a conference speaker, and I don't know if I ever will be. Like, I could be the entertainment. I could be, send me on at noon, like during lunch, and I'll do like a live coding improv. Hi and bye. I will do a like a live. So if you've ever seen on my stream, we did a thing that involves like audience participation, where at the beginning of the show we get like 10 suggestions from chat, and then we have an hour or two to build an app that use all of those suggestions. So I could do something like that. However, I don't think any conference wants to book me for that because it's so unpredictable. Like it's not planned. I don't like to do things planned. And so if I were to do that, there's a lot of variables there that I don't think people are ready to sign up for. Like so if you remember back in the day, there was a live coders conf. I think they did it twice. I submitted that as an idea and I did not get accepted. And I think ultimately because it's not predictable. But I'm not predictable. I don't know. I'm going to hold on to this question because we could do an entire video or an entire tutorial on server-side rendering versus client rendering versus server-side generation. Also talk about like single-page applications and stuff like that. But we'll potentially do that. Okay. The frames are dropping? Oh, yeah, I have 0.3% dropped frames. I've never seen that in my life. Usually I have 0% dropped frames. I don't know what's going on. Stotney mentions, I was at JS and Vue Conf in Amsterdam this year, and very few talks were well prepared and worth it, unfortunately. Most were marketing pieces or technically vlog, YouTube, video equivalents. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't know. If you want to hear me talk, just come to the Coding Garden, I guess. just tune in on Twitch or YouTube. I don't think I'll be at any conferences. Is it any better now? No, I've got even more. I've got 0.4% dropped frames now. What's going on? I'll just pause. I'll pause for a second. What's up, Peter? Welcome in. Is it any better? I'm gonna get some water. You can't hear me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for letting me know. Do I just end stream? Like, I don't want to. I don't want to stream with dropped frames. Mm. It's happening. It's happening. I see it. Is this just a me thing? It might just be a me thing. Yeah, my green screen is blue. In the stream when we least expect it. Yeah. Is there a visual tool for fast div form making? I'm so tired of CSS. You know what? I mean, I'm definitely going to be lagging right now. I know there is lag. I'm going to keep talking. Hopefully, VOD is okay. I found this library that lets you take a JSON schema and turn it into a form. I don't remember what it's called. Is it JSON forms? The video lags, audio is good. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to talk through. I mean, I always talk through what I do anyways. It's this. And apparently retool. Create form from JSON schema is what I want. I don't know if these are the ones that I used. But this is what I would search for. So I think that this person in the chat had Blind Fish had this question. So I've never used this in a project, but it seems like it would be nice because basically you can take a JSON schema. So JSON schema is a standard. They have a way of describing objects, and this is used in a lot of places, like in DB libraries and form validation and stuff like that. So you could create a JSON schema, pass it to this library, and then it auto-generates the form based on that schema. And you can do complex stuff like, well, apparently not. I thought it would auto-update the last name. So this is an interesting thing because then you don't have to style the form. You just pass it the JSON schema, it auto-generates it, but is this it? I can't find the one that I've seen before, but that's something to look into. That's crazy to think about ads. Ads 270 is saying, my consulting company just built a huge app that completely builds the entire app using JSON config. Cool. I think it seems like there's probably, like, things could get fairly brittle, like you don't have a lot of options for certain things, but it could be a thing. Yeah, my stream, I see OBS. It keeps saying like red, green. It could just be general network issues. Yeah. I use React hook form, and I feel like this would have been a long time ago, but I feel like I almost wrote my own library that like takes a joy schema or a yup schema and then generates the form automatically based on the schema. Somebody's probably done it because I use React hook form as well. And it allows you to do schema validation, but it would be nice if I could pass it the schema validation and then pass it the schema and then it just generates the form as well. So yeah. Yeah, we're answering questions, Iris. Okay, so if you asked a question, type exclamation mark here. Those will bubble up. I'm only going to be live for like 20 more minutes. I don't want to be live with these stream issues. It is very aggravating. So I'm going to no longer be live in 2.5 hours. Or sorry, in 20 minutes and 30 seconds. So if you asked a question, type exclamation mark here. I will get into it. In my opinion, server-side rendering with Dino, is that greater than Node.js, Koa, Happy, or Feathers? I think it's a completely, and this has to do also with this idea of do I use templating? I think it varies depending on the app. And thank you, Vino. Appreciate that. I think the lag is getting worse. I'm at 0.9% dropped frames at this point. But, and I mean, I want to do a video on this whole idea of server-side rendering, because for certain applications, it makes sense for them to be server-side rendered. It makes sense from like a search engine optimization perspective, from like a load speed perspective. It also depends on like the types of people that are going to be using your app, because if it's people that typically have slower internet connections, then if you send them a huge payload of JavaScript, that's going to load really slow. And then now after the JavaScript kicks in, if it needs to if it needs to make further API requests, then that's going to make the page even slower. So like, it really depends on what you're trying to do. I personally don't like how Fresh is like everything is server-side rendered. However, I think things are changing, right? So the thing about Fresh is it gets deployed to Dino deploy, and these are, I believe, edge functions, and it handles all of that automatically for me. And so I think the idea is like, if I can write an app that does server-side rendering, can be deployed to edge functions, and I don't have to worry about anything else, but I know that for all of my users, it's going to be deployed to a server as close as possible to them, so it's actually going to be really fast. That's nice. That's an interesting idea, and it's nice that I don't have to worry about those kinds of things. But yeah, I think it depends on the app that you're trying to build. It depends on your customer base and the people using your app. So yeah, it's tricky. BTRSL says, what course are you working on and what's the status? And we'll talk about this. So in the past, I talked about working on a course called Full Stack 101 or Full Stack Crash Course. And the idea was it was going to be a course for anybody that wanted to learn about the bigger picture, right? It could be targeted at just front-end devs. It could be targeted at back-end devs that want to learn a little bit about front-end. It could be targeted at non-technical people that want to understand like what the full stack is. However, I was having a really hard time paring it down. I basically just want to teach everything, and then it turns into a gigantic course, and I don't want it to be that. I have shifted gears, and I'm actually working on a course I'm calling React for Web Developers. I actually did it as a course about a year ago. But the idea is you would take this course if you already knew web development. So let's say maybe you're like a WordPress developer, or you've really only done HTML and CSS. Maybe you know a little bit of JavaScript. The idea of this course is I will introduce you to modern web development with React. We'll talk about like why React even exists. We'll talk about build tools and build processes. We'll talk about how React works. We'll dive deep into React, and then we'll talk about styling solutions and component libraries for React, and then also like global state management solutions for React. So basically all of the it's a React crash course, but it's targeted at people that already know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's introducing them to modern web development. That's the course I'm working on now. I'm a big old procrastinator. It's like technically when I end the stream in 16 minutes, I should go work on that course. I should. I'm probably not going to. I have other things going on that I need to work on as well. So ultimately, I don't even have a day when it's gonna. I don't have a deadline for I could set a deadline for myself, but it's possible that if I do that, the quality will potentially suffer. But that is the course that I want to build. I already have a lot of the, and the reason I shifted gears is because I actually already have a lot of the content. I've already written examples, exercises, that kind of thing. I really just need to make some videos around it. Yeah, it's geared toward beginners. If you know the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, this course will introduce you to React. But it will also introduce you to more modern JavaScript stuff, so like arrow functions, destructuring, ECMAScript modules, all the things that you need to know in order to be successful in working in a React app. Those are the things that I teach and talk about. 1st of August deadline. Did I say that? Yeah. I've done co-working streams before, just not recently. But maybe that could motivate me. Could motivate me to work on it. Yeah. That's another good idea as well. Just a general course on web scraping. Yeah. I guess so. But I also I have competing priorities because I also have to think about, all right, why am I making this course? Probably the biggest reason I'm making this course is not necessarily to even make that much money. It's really to get myself exposure on Udemy, because I don't have any courses here. A lot of people have courses here. And really the idea is that once I launch this course, it will drive people to Twitch and to YouTube. They'll also pay money for the course. I'll make a little bit there, but that'll increase my audience. And then eventually I'm going to have my own course platform where I release courses. And all of the people, it's a funnel, because all of the people searching for courses on Udemy would never have been able to find me if I don't have something there. So that's my goal there. Do you think someone can learn TypeScript before being comfortable in JavaScript? I think so. I think the one thing you're up against, though, is you come across an issue and you don't know if it's a TypeScript issue or a JavaScript issue. And that can be really tricky to solve if you're a beginner and you don't have that context yet. However, as a beginner, the guardrails that TypeScript provides, actually, like a lot of people like that more than how free and open JavaScript is, because there's just like less options, and TypeScript forces you to write code in a certain way. So I think for beginners that can be useful, but like I said, you might run into scenarios where you don't know if this is a TypeScript issue or a JavaScript issue. Yeah. There are devs who don't know CJ. There are a lot of devs who don't know me. I mean, either they don't know me or they don't care to follow me. So, I mean, if you look at my YouTube channel, I gained about 24,000 subs last year, or about 20,000 subs last year. The year before that, I think I gained something like 50 or 60,000. Like, there were a few things that happened that caused a bunch of people to go to my YouTube channel. Now, obviously, like, this number doesn't mean that much. I think in general, my active audience is around 400 to 500 people. Because if you look at how many people are subscribed to my mailing list, how many people are watching right now, how many people, so this is actually a really good indicator, how many people are subscribed to the archive channel. Now, I do understand that not everyone wants to see my VODs. However, like roughly 500 people being subscribed here is like, this is my most recent captive audience, I think. Or at least people that are interested enough to look at the archives. I don't know. I don't think you're slipping, Top Boy, but I think it's worth learning, because most of the jobs you find, like most JavaScript jobs, are TypeScript jobs these days. So I definitely think it's worth looking into. And if you're working on a team, it makes the code base easier to follow for your teammates and stuff like that. But yeah. Yeah, and so the other aspect of like having my own course platform is I want to be able to accept many different kinds of currencies, and I want to have like price parity. So I know that $1 for someone in the US is way different than $1 for somebody living in another country, potentially. And I want you to be able to pay what you can afford. I don't want to charge $50 for a course and like that's your monthly salary or something like that. So that's something I got to think about as well. Excuse me. Am I going to make a PR for Hacktoberfest to show chat how big our open source projects can work? I thought about it. I don't know if I will, though. I've talked about open source in the past. Like if you look at my... Where should I even go here? If you look on my video site, I have a video on what is open source, and then I have a video on where I'm actually trying to contribute to an open source project. And I talk about how you would do that, how do you find a project, all of that good stuff. I think I've made a decent amount of content around that. I want to do more. I don't know if I want to do Hacktoberfest. That's my answer to that. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. So yeah. All right, what else do we got? Rust live stream win. I don't know. I think I wrote a little bit of Rust on not Lust, Rust, Code Wars a while back. I solved like 3 problems with Rust. That's the extent of my Rust experience. Eventually, I want to do more. I don't know. It would be cool to write some command line utilities, because I know that that's what a lot of people are using Rust for these days, is like build tools for the JavaScript ecosystem. A lot of them are written in Rust, so that could be fun. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Salazar says, I'm a beginner and you've been helpful and inspiring. That's good. That's good. Any good resources for learning TypeScript? I have a few videos on it. If you look at my YouTube channel, they're some of the most recent ones that have been published. I've got an intro to TypeScript, building a backend API with TypeScript, and then setting up a React app that will eventually use TypeScript. And Salazar, thank you very much for the 3-month resub. So I've got that. I would recommend, what's the guy's name? The Pollock guy? I don't know. If I search for Learn TypeScript, we'll probably find him. I'm tripping over my words a lot today. TypeScript exercises. Is it Matt Pollock? I don't know how to spell his name or how to say his name. Pocock. Okay. Look at this. It's a TypeScript crash course with Matt Pocock. Definitely check him out. Check him out. I don't like exercise either, but I need to. And then totaltypescript.com. Who runs that? I wonder. Okay, I'm going to go completely silent for a second. So, I disabled those cameras when they're not active. I don't know why that would affect my bitrate in OBS. Let's see if it does, because I'm green now. And Peter Stolman, thank you very much for the resub. I still hate TypeScript. Hopefully that will change soon. Yeah, no, it didn't affect it, because the bitrate's going down. You can check out my mouse on the gear page. It is an Evoluent left-handed mouse. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. In general, like, you don't really see the benefit of TypeScript until you have a larger code base, or if you're like working on a team. If it's a solo project, TypeScript can seem really cumbersome. Oh yeah, okay, this is, yeah, Matt Pocock's course. Definitely check this out too. That's a good resource. Cool. Cool. Any thoughts on Quick? It's an interesting idea. I mean, it does server-side rendering as well, but also like lazy loading of JavaScript. Even like, it's like, I don't know if they have a custom term for it, but it's not just like lazy loading of components. It will lazy load a click handler for an element. Like, it won't load the JavaScript for the click handler unless it knows that that thing is about to be clicked on. So it does some serious optimizations when it renders it and stuff. So I think they have some really cool ideas. But, I I mentioned it earlier. I don't do a lot of server-side rendering. I probably, for certain apps I will, but most of the stuff I build these days, I don't do server-side rendering. How did I decide which area of computer science I wanted to go into? You're stuck between cybersecurity and video game design. Go with cybersecurity. There's more jobs. There's more jobs and they probably pay better. Video game design is interesting, and so I got a computer science degree, and pretty much everyone except for me getting a computer science degree was like, oh, I want to design video games. And I think like that's usually people's initial interest in computers and programming is like, oh, I love playing video games. Obviously, I would love making them as well, but as far as I know that the game industry at large isn't the best work environment. And then also like there are I guess various like large game studios, but other than that, if you're only doing game design, you might only have to do like indie games or smaller games. You might not be able to work at one of like the larger game studios and stuff. So yeah, all of that to say, I mean, if you really think you want to design video games, and maybe you have an idea for a video game, but you want to learn how to code first, so that you can like basically build your dream. Sure, go for it. If you're deciding that you want to do video game design because you like playing video game design is a very different thing. It's a very different thing. And yeah, people are mentioning the game industry doesn't pay very well. It's bigger than the movie industry. Like, at least from like what I've heard is there's I don't know if it's like crunch culture. NX Thor mentioned crunch vibe. The idea that you're working overtime. You're expected to work overtime to meet deadlines. That's not the case in all industries. So that's something to think about. And I will say I'm biased. I'm biased because I actually don't really play that many video games. And I never had a desire to really even make my own games. And for someone getting a computer science degree, that was like really weird because most people were all like, oh yeah, I want to make video games. Of all the people I went to school with to get computer science degrees, maybe one of them is working on video games now. There are just more jobs in other aspects. And cybersecurity is especially huge these days. And it's only getting bigger. And there's a lot more jobs, and it's a lot more fun. Cybersecurity is a nice way of saying hacking. You literally get to hack. And if you get hired at a security company, you will get to legally hack. Like companies will pay you to hack them so that you can basically show them, oh, these are all the things wrong with your network, with your computers, you need to fix them. And that's one aspect of cybersecurity. So that's fun. There's also like reverse engineering and malware analysis. There's like network security, penetration testing. It's a really big field. I don't know. I'm biased. I like cybersecurity and I don't like video games. So if I had to choose, I would choose cybersecurity. To answer your earlier question, when I got my computer science degree, my university did not offer specializations. I took courses in cybersecurity. So I took a computer forensics course and a course literally called cybersecurity. And then I think one other course I took that was like cybersecurity related. Stream has gone down. Stream is completely down. And we're back. Okay, I need to go. No, I need to go. We should be back now, but I need to go. This is not good. My OBS is having serious issues. But all of that to say, when I got a computer science degree, I didn't have specializations, but I did take some cybersecurity courses. And these days, I am a software engineer. Like, I'm not employed anymore, but when I was employed, I was a software developer, software engineer. We're going down. We went down again. I gotta go. Let's go ahead and do a raid before I go down. Before I go down too hard. But yeah, so if all that to say, I think cybersecurity is a better option. More job options, higher pay, and you get to do cooler stuff than just design video games. All right, I gotta go. I think it's my network. It's also, I might also be getting like denial of service or something like that. I don't really know. I'm actually gonna go look at my firewall logs after this. But I gotta go. Please join the mailing list. I send out a weekly thing, and I also send out go live notifications. So join the mailing list. Follow over on YouTube. Follow my Twitter, and we also have a Discord. So if you have, I'll say this: if you had a question, give me a second. If you had a question that didn't get answered, feel free to hop over on the Discord, and you can open up a thread in the help forum, and we'll try to answer it there as well. That's it. That's all. Let's go on a raid. If you are a sub, you can use this raid message. Yeah. If you're not a sub, you can use this raid message. You can also come up with your own raid message. Wherever we go, show them lots of love. All that good stuff. And that's it. That's all. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this. This. Well, I forgot that if the stream goes down, we don't get stream credits because Streamlabs doesn't know that we went down, then it thinks we went live again, and then there's no credits. Oh well, let's go on a raid. Thanks to everyone that subbed. Thanks for all the follows. We'll see you next time.